February 26th is the birthday of the late, great Johnny Cash. Although the singer lived in the Nashville area most of his life, well, there was never much to commemorate his life until recently. Well, Rob Wiles has the story of a fan who became a Cash keepsake collector and finally leader of a museum dedicated to his honor.
It was just another day at school for young Bill Miller until that fateful moment.
I discovered Johnny Cash when I was 9 years old in the third grade. A little girl that I was sweet on actually brought the album live at Folsom Prison for show and tell. So on goes this record, and all of a sudden you hear this strong intro and "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash," and my life was changed from there on. I'd never heard anything like it.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
And that was it. The start of a fascination that was solidified when Bill, still a kid, got his folks to drive him 500 miles to see Johnny Cash in person. He wormed his way up to the stage.
And about the time that I got to the stage, I put my camera up to take a picture, and he had just finished a song called Orange Blossom Special where he plays two harmonicas. And the minute I raised my camera, the song ended, and he looked right into my eyes and tossed me a harmonica. That sealed the deal. If it wasn't sealed before, that was it.
Over time, Bill met Johnny Cash, and they went from fan and idol to good friends and many shared interests.
I collected and sold historical manuscripts, autographs, anything from handwritten George Washington letters to the Rosewood Telecaster used by George Harrison when he was part of the Beatles. Johnny was a collector, but that's not how we came together. We had a long friendship, but when I founded that company, he being a collector and myself being a collector, I helped him build a complete set of presidents, and he'd give me things. So we'd kind of swap back and forth. You know, I'd get something in the mail from House of Cash, which may have been a national proclamation honoring him, and I'd send him a Teddy Roosevelt or give it to him in person. Because Johnny was a real serious student of history. People don't realize, but he was a Bible scholar. He was a student of the Civil War and the Revolutionary War. Very well studied and very well written man. He didn't like to talk about entertainment or himself. He was, when he was off stage, he was just a man, a very good man at that.
Fast forward a few decades. Bill, living in California, has thousands of Johnny Cash artifacts. He looks around and thinks about a place that doesn't have any: Nashville.
His house burned down. His museum and office building were converted to office condos. So the only place you could really go to see Johnny Cash was the grave sites. And I thought that's really sad for a man who essentially branded Nashville.
Again, from Music City, USA, the home of the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, Tennessee.
You know, when he had the ABC TV series, people from around the world every week would hear him say, "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash, coming to you live from Music City, USA, Nashville, Tennessee." And that made Nashville a household word. But if you came to downtown Nashville, there was no Johnny Cash. We decided that it's time to do something to honor my friend, to pay him back for all the good things that he did, not only for me, but for people around the world.
So began the Johnny Cash Museum, which includes just about everything to chronicle the life of Johnny Cash.
When you enter, you're going to see the first toys he ever had as a little boy. They're marbles that he had. That was all they could afford in those days. So you're going to see those. And literally everything in between the birth and the end of the career. There's no death in the museum because when you open that door, Johnny Cash is everywhere. He's alive today.
Even Johnny's house that burned down has been resurrected in a way. Bill excavated the site to get a wall.
Why did you feel the need to preserve this wall? I mean,
well,
it's just a stone wall, right?
It's just a stone wall, but to tens of millions of fans who made the trek out to Hendersonville, where this stone wall served as an interior wall in Johnny and June's house, it was their mecca. You know, people came from all over the world to see where Johnny Cash lived, and the house burned down a few years back, and there was nothing to see anymore. So we thought, why don't we take one of those interior walls of one of the most famous rooms, which was called the Lakeside Room, and excavate it stone by stone and reconstruct it here in the museum, and include some of the furniture that Johnny and June had, and let folks feel like they've stepped into their living room. So the house continues to live.
Johnny Cash's fame just seems to keep growing, and the museum is adding to that.
Our singular goal here is to have them feel like they knew Johnny Cash and knew who he was, And I think when they do that, they will see everything again from his earliest childhood memories. They'll find out that he was an artist, not only as a songwriter and as a performer, but he was literally a painter. He did paintings, he sketched, he did leather work. He was a photographer, and they'll see all of that here. And it's educational, it's very interactive. We have iPads throughout so people can interact with what they're seeing in the exhibit. So I think there's really something for everybody. And if they're not Johnny Cash fans, I remember a couple months ago, I was walking out and there was two couples there, two middle-aged couples. And as I was getting ready to walk out, a lady throws up her hands and goes, "You know, I was never a fan, but this is just amazing." And she's looking around. I said, "Ma'am, you just made my day."
A visit to the Johnny Cash Museum will likely make your day too. Of course, it's not like actually meeting the man in black, but it's pretty close.
And I'd let that lonesome whistle blow my blues away.